97% of every message, transaction, phone call, and data transfer that crosses an ocean does not travel through the air. It travels through cables on the floor of the sea, nearly 1 million miles of them running through the coldest and most inaccessible places on Earth, thinner than a human wrist in the deep ocean, carrying the entire weight of the modern world's communication and financial system, and there are fewer than 60 ships in the world capable of repairing them. Remember that number. It matters more than anything else in this story. Paula Wallenberg commands Sweden's submarine flotilla. In the autumn of 2024, she told a reporter that the current situation in the Baltic Sea looks pretty close to the Cold War. Not at peace, she said, but not at war. She said it the way someone says something they have been thinking for a long time, but had only recently been permitted to say out loud. She was right, and the reason she was right was lying on the floor of the sea. The internet is not a cloud. It is a physical object lying on the bottom of the ocean, and it has been there in various forms since the first transatlantic telegraph cable was laid in 1858. Today's cables carry fiber optic signals at close to the speed of light, handling trillions of dollars in financial transactions every single day. The entire infrastructure of global banking, international communication, military coordination, and real-time data transfer depends on them. Every email, every bank transfer, every stock trade, all of it running through cables the diameter of a garden hose, lying unguarded on the ocean floor. When one of those cables breaks, the nearest available repair ship must be identified, mobilized, and routed to the location. The break must then be found by dragging sensors along the seabed until the fault is detected. The median repair time for a deep-sea cable break is 40 days. For a nation with limited cable redundancy, that means 40 days of degraded or severed connectivity. Financial systems degrade, military communication networks are affected, and the global repair fleet standing between a damaged cable and a functioning internet has fewer than 60 ships. 60 ships for 1 million miles of cable spread across every ocean on Earth. This was the vulnerability that Russian military planners had been studying for years. Since at least the early 2000s, Russian military doctrine had described what it called the anthropogenic shell of modern society, the fragile physical infrastructure on which everything depends, as the primary Achilles heel of Western nations. A directorate within Russian military intelligence, known as GUGI, operates deep-diving submarines and survey vessels equipped with submersibles capable of reaching 6,000 meters. For years, NATO intelligence tracked Russian vessels moving through the North Atlantic and Baltic regions, mapping the precise locations of undersea cables and pipelines. They were not doing research, they were identifying targets. The campaign did not announce itself. In September 2022, both strings of the Nord Stream natural gas pipeline running between Russia and Germany were destroyed in underwater explosions detected by seismographs across Scandinavia. It was the largest act of deliberate damage to undersea infrastructure in recorded history. 3 years later, no government has been formally charged. The perpetrators have not been named. A year after Nord Stream, in October 2023, a data cable linking Sweden and Estonia and a pipeline connecting Finland and Estonia were both damaged. A Chinese-owned vessel named Nu Polar Bear was identified as the likely cause. By the time authorities confirmed what had happened, the ship had passed through Finnish waters, through the Danish Straits, along the Norwegian coast, and into Russian territorial waters. There was no legal basis to stop it at any point. This is the mechanism that makes the whole strategy work. The cables lie mostly in international waters, or in exclusive economic zones, which carry different legal status than territorial waters. Ships transiting these areas cannot be boarded without the flag nation's consent under international maritime law. A vessel that drags its anchor through a fiber optic cable and then continues into international waters has committed an act for which there is almost no legal recourse. The primary international law governing cable damage, the Convention for the Protection of Submarine Telegraph Cables, was written in 1884. It has not been substantively updated since. Paula Wallenberg understood what this meant. The Baltic Sea, the body of water her submarines patrol, is shallow, with an average depth of only about 180 feet. Its cables lie close to the surface, within easy reach of an anchor. Up to 4,000 ships transit it every day, identifying which ship is dragging its anchor with deliberate intent in time to intercept it within waters where action is legally possible requires a level of maritime surveillance that does not yet exist. The attacks accelerated. On November 17, 2024, a cable connecting Sweden and Lithuania was cut. Less than 24 hours later, the Sea Lion 1 cable connecting Finland and Germany, the only cable connecting Finland to the European continent, was also cut. Both breaks occurred in close proximity to the Chinese cargo vessel Yipeng 3, which had departed from a Russian port 2 days earlier. Maritime tracking data placed the ship at the exact time and location of both breaks. European authorities surrounded the vessel in international waters. They could not board it without China's permission. That permission never came. The ship eventually continued its voyage. Then came Christmas. On December 25, 2024, the Estlink 2 power cable connecting Finland and Estonia was severed, and 4 telecommunications cables were damaged in the same area. A Russian-linked oil tanker called the Eagle S was identified as the culprit. Investigators later confirmed it was part of what they call the Ghost Fleet, up to 600 ships operating with false registration that Russia uses to evade sanctions. This time, Finnish authorities responded differently. Military forces boarded the vessel from a helicopter while it was still at sea and forced it into Finnish waters. Investigations confirmed the vessel had dragged its anchor deliberately for dozens of kilometers and was on course to damage another cable when intercepted. A Finnish court later dismissed charges against the crew for lack of conclusive evidence. The cables were repaired. The next ship was already moving. 7 cables in the Baltic Sea in 8 weeks. Consider what that means against 60 repair ships for 1 million miles of cable. Each incident in 2024 and 2025 was individually manageable. Each was repaired, but every analyst who has modeled a coordinated attack on multiple cables in multiple locations simultaneously, and NATO has run those models, arrives at the same conclusion. The global repair fleet would be exhausted within days. Cables in the most strategically important locations would sit damaged for weeks or months. There is no reserve fleet. The 60 ships that exist are the 60 ships that exist. NATO launched Baltic Sentry in January 2025, deploying additional naval vessels, aircraft, and underwater drones to monitor the sea. The alliance acknowledged it cannot be everywhere at once. On the last day of 2025, still another cable between Helsinki and Tallinn was severed. Finland mobilized military forces and the defense ministry. The president released a statement. The cable carried a modest amount of data. The response reflected what the Finns had learned over the previous 14 months. That each incident is not an accident. It is a test of reaction time, of legal authority, of political will, and of how many ships you can put in the water before the next anchor goes down. The cables will be repaired. They are always repaired. The 40-day clock starts. The repair vessel mobilizes. The fiber is spliced, and the data flows again. Somewhere in the Baltic, in the North Atlantic, in the waters around Taiwan, where 5 more cable incidents occurred in 2024 and 2025. The next vessel is already moving. Its ownership structure is deliberately obscure. Its flag nation will not give consent to board. The seabed is dark, very deep, and there are not enough ships to watch all of it. 97% of the world's internet can be cut with an anchor. The law that protects those cables was written in 1884. The fleet that repairs them has 60 ships, and Paula Wallenberg, who has spent her career watching the water, says this looks pretty close to the Cold War. She is not wrong. The difference is that in the Cold War, the infrastructure being targeted had not yet been built.